You know, I used to shoot my Table Talk episodes outside like this, and I haven't done it in a while, and I'm not sure why. It's lovely out here. So let's give it a try. Hi everyone, welcome to Board Game Geeks Table Talk. My name is Rodney Smith, and in this series, I share my initial thoughts on a gaming-related topic, and then I invite you to respond in the comments below, which I'll compile into the following Table Talk Back episode. This way we can all kind of participate in the conversation. Now this time around, I want to talk about something that I think comes up quite often in our hobby, the topic of game balance. When playing a game, people want to know, all other things being equal, will I have just as much chance of winning as the person next to me? Will they start the game with an unfair advantage, or maybe draw a card later that gives them an unfair advantage as the game goes on? I'm sure we've all heard, at one point or another, someone at a table say, "Sorry, you played what card? You mind if I just take a look?" Wait, what? This is so overpowered. Well, I mean, to be fair, anyone could have bought it. It's been sitting on the table here for the last 7 turns. I just saved up enough resources for it. Yeah, but now you get 6 free camels a turn. But you could have bought it too. You didn't. 6 camels? There's no strategy in this game that can beat 6 camels around. Yeah, but 6 camels! I don't know what that game was, but you get the point. Also, it started to downpour out here. I don't know if you can hear that, but maybe this is why I stopped recording videos outside. You know what, let me just wrap up this next part and then we'll go inside to continue this. I've been certain that a particular card or faction in a game is more powerful than another. And I think when you're convinced of that, it's a tough thing to shake. It can really frame your whole opinion of a game. Well, something happened to me recently that disrupted how quickly I make claims of game imbalance now. And it has to do with the game Tapestry. So let's go inside and I'll pull that game off the shelf. Okay, let's try this again from here. So Tapestry is a game that at the time of this recording is just going out for pre-order. And when I went on the BGG at Sea cruise earlier this year, I took it with me, figuring it would be a fun way to be able to share a new game that people maybe hadn't had a chance to try out yet. Well, I ended up teaching and playing it 7 times in 6 days. I played a lot of Tapestry with a lot of lovely people, and I really enjoyed it. But I also got to hear 7 different groups of people discuss their experience. Most everyone enjoyed it. The people who won liked it a little more. The people who lost liked it a little less. Pretty typical human nature stuff there. But what stood out was the talk about game balance. After a game, people would discuss which civilizations they thought were stronger and which paths to victory they thought were best. And what was fascinating to me was that one group would conclude something like, "You really can't generate enough points out of technology to make that the focus of your game." But then the next new group of players would come in, and someone there would make technology the focus of their game and then win. And then they would say, "Well, technology was strong, but I can't see how you would ever make filling your capital board a viable strategy." Then the next group would come in, and guess what? Yes, someone would fill their capital board and win. And then they'd conclude, "Well, it seems like expanding across the board isn't a good use of your turns." And then, yes, the next group would have someone win who focused on exploring the map. What was fascinating to me was how each group was equally convinced that their conclusion about what was strong and what was weak in the game had to be true. I don't know if you've noticed the creature behind me. He's a little bit of a distraction. Let's move to the dining room and continue this from there. What stood out to me, I think, was just how confident everyone was in the conclusions that they had drawn about the strategies and balance of Tapestry after just one play. And look, I've done this too. I've played a game and afterwards thought, I don't see how you would ever make that strategy work. I even did that with Tapestry. But then I watched other people play the game using the strategy that I thought was weak, and they made it work. And that really got me thinking, how often do we get to let a game's balance prove itself to us? I realized that with Tapestry, I had had a unique experience because not only did I play it a lot, I played it with different people each time. And think about the impact that can have. Maybe in your typical game group, Sally is very combat heavy, while Jim is more about trading resources. Harold really likes to explore the map. And John, well, John's just always on his phone. John, it's your turn. Sorry. I think I was pulling from some suppressed gaming memory there. Sorry. Now, every time that particular, very fictional group plays the game, they're likely going to fall into their typical playstyles. And that might lead them away from the best strategies. In other words, can a game be balanced to the whims of each game group and their particular combinations of playstyles? Let me try to give you another quick example. I was at another convention, and I was playing Terraforming Mars with a group, and one guy at the table commented, "This is a very different way of playing than the way we do back home." I asked him to explain, and he said, "Well, you're all playing much faster than we do. We usually don't build much of anything for the first several rounds. We just buy loads and loads of cards, and then we work on these massive engines. Everyone at this table is just trying to terraform the planet as quickly and efficiently as possible, where we prefer the engine building aspect and want to spend time doing that rather than just rush the end." Now understand, this guy played Terraforming Mars every week with his group. They loved that game. But their group's playstyle was completely different than how we were playing. And while I personally see actively avoiding the end of the game as a bit of an extreme way of playing, still, that example can allow us to appreciate that there will be a lot of other moderate differences across several game groups. One sec. You know what? New plan. Look, we tried something new. A new strategy, you could say, and it didn't work. So we're going to adapt. We're going to go to a controlled setting, and I think things will be a little smoother from here on out. Okay, so let's see where we were. All right, I was talking about a game group and the very different way in which they play Terraforming Mars. And the point of that was more just to illustrate that there are going to be gradients, differences in the way every game group approaches a game and plays together. And I almost wonder if we're chasing an illusion when we talk about game balance. Now, yes, of course, we want the game to feel fair. It's understandable to want that. But how can a game ever actually be balanced when the players aren't? And that might actually be the elephant in the room of most debates around game balance. People frequently see their shortcomings in a game as a product of the game's imbalance. I mean, rarely do I find people volunteering that after one play, just maybe, due to a lack of their experience, or even their own poor choices, maybe that's why they didn't perform as well as they could have, and it's not actually the game's fault. And I don't think I've ever been as keenly aware of this blind spot in my own gaming until I met Pep, who you might know from his time here on Watch It Played. I've enjoyed gaming ever since I was young, and I always considered myself a generally decent player. Then I met Pep, and I think out of the near hundreds of times we played together, I might have beat him a handful of times. I remember we were playing, well, I think it was Villainous, and I was one of the characters, and I kept playing it over and over and losing to him every time. But I stubbornly wanted to keep playing that character to see if I could eventually win. As I lost over and over, I became convinced that this character's win condition was just too hard relative to the others. I mean, it became clear to me that the deck was underpowered. And I had all kinds of explanations to back it up. Now, eventually, perhaps because he had tired of my theorizing, he offered to play the character that I had been using. And then he beat me. Handily. Then he played that character again. And again, beat me handily. Look, this was tough, because I now had to face a very uncomfortable conclusion. I mean, was the game imbalanced? Was this character I had been losing with underpowered? Or was Pep just operating on a different, superior skill level than I was? Well, the answer was painfully obvious. Pep is a better, more skillful player than I am, in Villainous and many other games. And I saw this time and time again. People would comment amongst us about a particular strategy being useless in a game, and he would employ that strategy and wipe the floor with everyone. Now, he didn't make a production of it, and others probably didn't even notice it. But this made me keenly aware. No matter how balanced a game is, we as players aren't. And not only is this true, I think, but it's okay, right? Because the fun of this hobby is not just from winning every time you play. And thank goodness for that. Or I think this hobby would make me miserable, because I lose a lot of games. but I do think one's performance in a game can have a significant impact on how we assess the game's balance. And I think there's a very relatable reason for this. Unlike watching a movie or reading a book, when you play a game, your public performance is on display for everyone. And I think that makes us a little more prone to look for justifications for why we're not playing as well as others did. And I think game balance is a natural scapegoat. And here's the thing. You don't know what you don't know. When Pep would outplay me, it wasn't because I had one hand tied behind my back or one eye covered. We were both looking at the same game. He could just see options and think more moves ahead than I could. To put this another way, can a game be balanced to everyone else's imbalanced skill set? Because in any group, you're never going to have everyone equally capable of playing the game well. So when one strategy seems overpowered, yes, it could be, or it could just be the player who is overpowered, which is a tougher thing to come to terms with, or even measure. Now, as I start to wrap up, I do want to make it clear, I'm not saying designers should just throw out their efforts to balance a game. I mean, clearly, there are ways to balance a game, and if you're not careful, certain strategies, all other things being equal, will be too strong. I guess I'm just wondering, in our own conversations about this, do we take the all other things being equal part too much for granted? Because all other things are almost never equal. One's mood, one's skill, one's experience with the game, one's attention span, how much sleep they got the night before, one's preference for certain strategies in games. Don't all of these things imbalance the game in some way before the game even begins? So what is the question of this table talk? I think like a lot of the table talks I've done in the past, it's more about talking about how we discuss the topic than the particular conclusions that we come to. I'm just curious about how we think about the ways that we assess game balance in our hobby. And I also want to know, did any of my comments resonate with you in a particular way? Do you have any stories of game balance that might lead you to a similar conclusion, or perhaps a different one? When you say you want a game to be balanced, what do you feel you mean by that? And how do you assess it? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and in the upcoming Table Talkback episode, I'll compile those and dive into this deeper with you so we can explore this topic further. Also, if you found this video interesting, please consider liking and subscribing to this Board Game Geek channel on YouTube, and click the bell icon so you can be notified when the follow-up video is posted. Also, you can go over to my channel, Watch It Played, which will be linked below, where I post full tutorials teaching you how to play modern and classic games, so you don't have to wrestle with the rulebook. But until next time, thanks for watching.